So now we are ready to start our session 4, Life and Death, beginning with John Korngold, that will talk about Reincarnation, Missionaries of Life, of the Light. Joao Korngold holds a BS and an MBA, is one of the founders and directors of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. He is a Spiritist for more than 18 years and has been one of the directors of the mediumship meeting for the past 8 years. He is also responsible for Thursday's study group at SGNY that focus on the basic books of Spiritism and on the Luiz collection. Joao Korngold is an engineer and has been working as a banker for the past 20 years. John?
Good afternoon. Tough act to follow, right? Especially in the cuteness department. But anyway, let's try. Reincarnation. Reincarnation is not something that was brought to us by Spiritism. Actually, reincarnation existed in our thoughts and our minds for a long time. In the old Egyptian times and the old Greek times, we will find notions of reincarnation, maybe with different names, with names like resurrection. And Pythagoras, Socrates, they all believed in reincarnation. But the difference here is that Spiritism not only talks about reincarnation, but explains exactly how reincarnation works. How reincarnation works, the process of reincarnation. What happens in the spiritual world before we come to another incarnation. And if you study the Eastern religions that believe in reincarnation, Hinduism, Buddhism, they all talk about reincarnation, but none of them you'll find how it works and what it means and how it's exactly the process of reincarnation. And that's explained by Spiritism through the works of Kardec and through the works of Luiz, especially in this book, Missionaries of the Light. On the chapters 12 to 14, when Luiz prepares himself for the reincarnation, to help on the reincarnation process of Sigismundo. But first, let's understand what does reincarnation means. Repeat, or come again. Incarnate comes from the Latin incarnatus, which is to become flesh. Carne, flesh. For all those that know Portuguese and Spanish, it's very similar, come from the Latin. But according to the Spirit's book, which is our main source of information for Spiritism, it is the return of a soul or a spirit to a physical life in another body that has been newly formed for it. So that's the difference that when we start studying reincarnation according to Spiritism, we come to a different body. Other religions think about the reincarnation of the process of you may be coming back to the same body. You may be coming back to a different form of not a human form. In Spiritism, we learn that reincarnation is a moving forward process. We are always moving forward, and we are using new bodies as we come back to new incarnations. Oh, there we go. So, what is the purpose of reincarnation? Why it is necessary? Well, reincarnation is for us to learn and to atone. Learn new experiences and face the consequences of our actions in the past, the atonement. The reincarnation is what gives us the moral and spiritual advancement. We have two wings of evolution, which is the moral and the intellectual, and we need to evolve on both sides. If we don't, if we evolve only on one side, we cannot fly. We need the two wings to be able to fly. So reincarnation explains the reasons that are with us from the birth. If we cannot find in this life the reasons for our sufferings, it is because it's probably not from this life. It's from our past lives, from something that we did wrong in a previous existence. And that's the purpose, one of the purposes of reincarnation. In the book, in the city of Nosso Lar, there is a reincarnation planning center that we are going to look in more detail here soon. So when we talk about reincarnation, we understand the perfect laws of God. The spiritual law gives to each one according to his or her deeds. So nothing happens by chance. We are not here by chance. Everything that happens to us does not happen by chance. Again, if we cannot find the reason in this life, we can sure find the reason in our past lives. Now, one of the founding fathers of this country, Benjamin Franklin, 130 years before Kardec, wrote a mock epitaph. He was 22 years old when he wrote this, that he wanted to see written in his tomb. The body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost, for it will appear once more in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author. So you see that Benjamin Franklin had the perfect notion of reincarnation, and he is one of the spiritual guides of this nation, and we can see the wise beyond his years at that time already, 300 years ago. Also, we will find in Jesus, if we study Jesus, when he says to Nicodemus, I'll tell you the truth, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he's born again. So, and Jesus goes more and says that flesh gives birth to flesh, but spirit gives birth to spirit, separating this notion of we coming back to the same body, that announcing to us that we are coming back as spirits and not really in the same body. And he says you must be born again. And okay. So now going to André Luiz and his studies on reincarnation. On the chapter 12, Alexander and André Luiz are approached by a friend that asks Alexandre to help in the reincarnation process of Sigismundo. And André Luiz have never seen a reincarnation process in detail, so he asks Alexandre if he could follow the process, if he could join them in this process. And Alexandre agrees, but tells him that in order for him to understand the process and to be able to help in the process of the reincarnation of Sigismundo, he needs to spend a week in the reincarnation planning center, so he can have an idea of what involves the process of reincarnation. André Luiz, of course, agrees, and they go to the reincarnation planning center. On the way to the reincarnation planning center, they see a lot of workers carrying little charts of organic forms, and André Luiz becomes very curious. What are they carrying? And Alexandre explains to him that what they are carrying is forms. They are all workers involved in the planning of reincarnation, and they are carrying forms who are guidelines, blueprints of the incarnations, the new incarnations that they are going to work on. So when they enter the reincarnation planning building, Alexandre introduces André to Josino, who was going to take care of him during this week at the center. And André Luiz is very surprised to see two very large statues of a male body and a female body, and a very detailed. and he approaches the statues, and he's amazed by the detail and by the he being a doctor here, how much of the detail was put in this work. And he asks, I didn't know that there was so much importance to the physical body that was put here. And Alexandre explains to him, of course, when we are in the spiritual world, the reincarnation, the physical body is a blessing that we receive for our incarnation. So we need to understand it and take very good care of it. That's why there is all this building dedicated to reincarnation. So Josino then introduces André Luiz to Manasses, a brother that was working with the information services of the institution and that was going to guide André Luiz throughout the week. They go to the design and planning pavilion, where there is a lot of workers drawing up and preparing plans for the reincarnation. André Luiz is very surprised for how much work is dedicated to this planning pavilion and to this work of the planning of reincarnation. And he asks if all the reincarnations are so complex as this work that he's been seeing. And Manasses explains to him that these are special cases. These are mostly incarnations for those that, what they call in the book, the completers. He explains that we all come to this existence with a planning, with a target of what we should achieve. But most of us achieve something from 30 to maybe 50% of what we are supposed to do in our incarnation. We really waste our time. And few of us really achieve 100% of what we are supposed to achieve. These are the completers. These are the ones that on their next incarnation will be able to participate and actually choose their physical body and their abilities so they can come. Normally they will come in the next incarnation as missionaries, or to do they will come in a special mission. These are the completers, and these are the ones that mostly are taking care in this pavilion of planning reincarnations. When they are moving there, they meet this man called Silverio that had worked for 15 years in the activities of assistance and is preparing himself to reincarnate. And he's worried about his reincarnation because he says that he has a lot of debts, but he's afraid by coming here and forgetting about what he was supposed to do, he's going to accumulate new debts instead of atone for his old debts, for his past. And Manasses tells him that, encourages him, tells him that he's grateful that he chose to choose a body that has a slight defect on one of his legs, so that will be a reminder to him that of the task at hand, so he doesn't get distracted with our material life. It's very easy. We come here to our new incarnation, we come full of hopes and promises, and then life goes on and we get distracted and we get sidetracked of what we are really supposed to do here, and we end up going back to the spiritual world, accumulating more debts and fulfilling very little of what we were supposed to do. Again, in Spiritism we learn that we are always evolving. There is no chance that we are going to come to a new incarnation and regress and leave the new incarnation having going backwards. We are always moving forward. The difference is that we really have an opportunity to move forward in a grand scale, and normally we move forward very, very little tiny steps. So he congratulates Silverio for accepting the suggestion of the good spirits to be physically challenged a little bit, because that will remind him that he has to focus on the work. When they enter the design workroom, Luiz is surprised to see all these small screens showing parts of the human body, and there were hundreds of technicians specialized in embryology and general biology working there. And André said, wow, how complex is all this work? How much effort is put on the process of reincarnation? And then we come here, and then first we say, I didn't ask to be born. Yeah, we did. Why am I suffering? Why is this happening to me? It is happening because it is a necessity for our evolution. So everything is planned, and again, this is all done with or without our involvement. People ask very frequently, they ask, so is everybody involved in their planning of their own reincarnation? And I like to say, first you have to believe in reincarnation, right? If you don't believe in reincarnation, how you are going to work on your reincarnation process? Yeah, but when we go back to the spiritual world, don't we all immediately understand reincarnation? No. We continue to be exactly who we are. So if we never believed in reincarnation, it's not going back to the spiritual world that is going to immediately make us believe in reincarnation. So the first step is to believe and accept reincarnation, and then be able to work actively on our own inner transformation there in the spiritual world, so we can deserve to be involved in our process of reincarnation. Most of the reincarnations follows what we call an assembly line. It's a natural process. It's not something like this special. Most just happen by a natural process. It's the same case with discarnation, but that's what Luiz is going to talk after me, so I'm not going to invade his lecture. So what Manasseh explained to André Luiz is that primitive or semi-primitive people use the resources of nature to build their homes. So if we look at homes of the past, they were much simpler homes built with simpler materials. As we evolve intellectually, we are building more and more complex structures that needs blueprints beforehand. There were no blueprints 2,000 years ago. You just build with what you found around, rocks and parts of wood. As we evolve, we become more and more complex in our lives, and of course, our reincarnation planning becomes more and more complex. When they are in the design workroom, Sister Anacleta comes to talk to Manasseh, and it's a very interesting case because she's been working in the spiritual world for 40 years to be able to reincarnate and bring back and take care of her 4 kids that they were her 4 children in a previous incarnation, and she deviated them from their path through excessive love. Because she overprotected them, didn't allow them to take responsibility on themselves, they end up getting lost, all of them dying very young through our distractions of the material life. And they were for 30 years in the lower zones, and it took her 40 years to be able to have the opportunity of coming back and she's going to face a very difficult incarnation where two of her children, her sons, will be mentally challenged, and another one will be physically challenged, and the only one to help her will be her daughter, but that also has to face a difficult incarnation. So, and she's grateful for the opportunity. She's happy to be able to come back and try to amend what she did in a previous incarnation. When we are there in the spiritual world, we look back at our life and we challenge ourselves to do better, to come here and do and have a positive, fruitful life. And then we come here and forget everything and end up going back there and say, wow, I wasted another one. But those that are here, we are trying. At least we are trying. Another interesting case is this woman that comes to Manasseh with her design plan, and he sees that it's a drawing of a perfect woman's body, and she asks if they could change it because she would like to avoid re-enter the earth with a flawless bodily lines. In other words, she doesn't want to come to earth looking attractive, looking beautiful. She wants to look average. And the spirits tells us that the best way for us to fulfill our duties and to evolve is not to call the attention of others. When we are, attractive, what happens around us, right? There are negative jealousy, negative influences, all these vibrations that come to us, and it's very difficult to deal with it. And she knows that. So physical seductiveness, as he says, here is a real danger, not only for those who radiate its influence, but also for those who are subject to it. So not only you are hurting yourself, you are hurting those around you if you don't know how to deal with it. And Manasseh tells us that most missionaries, they don't look attractive, they don't look ugly, they look average. And we can think of the examples we all know. We admire them for what? For their physical beauty? Not really, right? We are attracted by the moral qualities. Finally, this friend, another friend that comes to Manasseh, and he says that this friend 100 years ago committed a terrible crime by stabbing a poor man to death. And immediately this man becomes his obsessor and becomes attached to him and causes him to slowly die through attacks like how the obsessive process can happen. But when he died, his spiritual body was in a very bad state. He spent many years repenting the crime, and after going through the lower zones, he approached his victim and worked for the improvement of his victim through rescue, and he obtained the merits. So we can evolve in the spiritual world. We can do our work in the spiritual world, and that's what he did for many, many years there. But the debt remains. So he's going to have a body that will carry the mark of the wound that he caused to the other. So he'll have an ulcer in his physical life, all again to atone for the crime that he committed and to prevent him from distract himself from the purpose of this new incarnation. And André Luiz concludes that human existence is not an accidental act, as we know. Now we go to this British philosopher that says, To not remember a past life or lives is therefore no indication that we have not had them, merely a pointer to the fact that memory of ourselves as a personality is not ultimately important. To remember past lives in our present psychological condition will be to know too much. We are always asking, why can't we remember about our past lives? If we are really reincarnating, shouldn't we remember everything that happened in our previous life so we can make amends? Let us think. We can barely deal with the mistakes we make in our present lives. You think we can deal with the ones that we did in our previous lives? Let us focus on this one. It's enough. So the fact that we don't remember our past lives do not mean that they didn't exist. They were there. We don't remember them because it's necessary for us, it's a blessing for us to face the difficulties of this life. So what are the implications of reincarnation in our lives? It strengthens family ties because we come back once and again living amongst our relatives from previous lives for readjustment and for help. According to the Dalai Lama, engenders universal love. It is a step towards tolerance, racial, religious, social, because we will come in different religions, different races, different social classes, so we have to learn to be comfortable in all of them. According to Elena Blavatsky, it brings a sense of brotherhood. We are all brothers and sisters. Raises the sense of renewal, elongates time sense. So Kardec tells us to be born, to die, to be reborn yet again, and constantly progress. Constantly progress. We are always moving forward. So, reincarnation is a blessed opportunity. Remember, the spirits tell us that we are 7 billion incarnates and 21 billion discarnates. So, it is an opportunity, and we shouldn't waste the opportunity we have this time to make good use, to help us progress and help those around us progress. And let's remember that this is not the first time you are seeing it. So, welcome back to the studies. Thank you very much.